And just wanted to say thank you so much for joining the weekly download for this week. Again, I am Mitchell Doomlau, and I just wanted to say I appreciate you for tuning in every week here at Video Content School and as well as across all Creative Haven. And today we're going to talk about the post-production process. And the reason why is because I'm actually working with a few clients right now where we are handling a lot of their post-production, and that also includes visual effects, coloring, sound mixing and sound design, and also a little bit of composition, a sound composition or composing, and at the same time editing. And I needed to actually create this video so I can teach people, it's actually my clients and other people out there who have clients and the people who are curious as to why it takes so long in post-production and why you need a picture lock. You can't just make micro edits here and there. And for the folks who just want to know more about post-production so that you get a sense of why a production company or a videographer or a creator needs the certain workflow, like getting a picture lock before going into color, so that you understand why we don't ask that you give us notes or you send us notes after everything is done. And the reason why is that when we pay or we hire people in certain departments like visual effects or sound mixing or coloring, the basically the whole project is already locked. And so when you ask for changes in the future, we have to go back and do this whole new workflow, and it's going to cost a lot of money, to take a lot more time. So you really need to have your notes very specifically in the beginning. At the same time, make sure that when you lock the picture, it is going to be locked. And then if you need any notes down the line, it'll be an extra amount and more time. And so to go through the whole process, I'm going to start from the beginning of when we actually get the footage. So when we videographers or editors get the footage, we do logging, and what that means is that you transfer the footage onto your hard drive. You can also transcode. So depending on the editor, they might need to have proxy files or lower resolution files, or they're going to use the high res or raw files depending on the editor. And then they're going to import them into their hard drive to whatever workflow that they have. And then they're going to go into a Premiere or Avid or Final Cut Pro X or whatever editing program that they have. And then they're going to start logging the footage and just labeling the footage and organizing it in their own way, and then creating their selects. And so what that means is that this is when the editing process kind of starts. So if I was the editor, I would transfer all my footage, create a new project, create my own folders within my hard drive to organize myself, and then I'll organize my own bins or folders within my Adobe Premiere. And then from there, I'm going to start looking through all the footage and then pick out my selects, depending on the project. If I have a very solid storyboard, then I would just go into the places that I know I shot according to the storyboard. If it's more like a documentary or an interview, then it's more of picking each interview and then watching the whole thing to find the best sound bites. And so that takes about a day, depending on how much footage. And the reason why is transferring takes a while, organizing takes a while, importing it into Adobe Premiere, into our editing programs takes a while. At the same time, looking through everything and scrubbing through the footage, sometimes in real time. So imagine the amount of hours we took to film. Imagine having to watch that and pick the best. So it's going to take a day or two, depending on how big the project is. And then from there, we do our selects or our rough cut. And so this is when we base it on the outline. And when we do the outline or the script or the storyboard or the mood board, then we create this rough cut. The rough cut is when we send it to you or the client, and the client now has the notes. Now, during this process, we're going to be using a lot of temporary tracks, music tracks, temporary sound design, like sound effects, also temporary color. And the reason why it's temporary is because imagine if you painted a whole house the way that the painter has painted a whole house, and but according to notes, like this looks like a beautiful house, and somebody came in and said, okay, I need this to be actually torn down in a different color, and this right here to be actually a different shade. And as the person who painted the house, you say, okay, I just gave you the blueprint and the house that was blank, and I asked you already what you wanted as the colors. For me to come in and repaint these areas, it's going to take more time and money. And so that's why before we actually agree to the color, we actually have a temporary color so that you feel that, okay, it's not just a flat log profile, which will look like, and you don't feel like it's raw footage. But it's not going to be the most defined color yet. So I just wanted to let you know that it's all about laying down the foundation first, and then making sure that you like the plans, and then when we actually color, it's going to be a final representation of what it's all about. And so the reason why this is important is that when we do get a rough cut from an editor, from a filmmaker, or from a video creator, it's usually going to be temporary tracks. And so you're going to also look for music that's going to be more to your liking, right? You're also going to look for sound effects, or you're going to ask us, give us notes. I don't like the sound effect. I like this sound effect. I want it something like this way. And also for VFX. And then so visual effects, let's say you wanted to add animation. You also wanted to add some motion graphics, or you wanted to fix a shot and take a mic out by erasing it. VFX, you pay by frame, because visual effect artists actually sometimes go frame by frame and they get paid by frame. And so why that's important to know is that it's a painstaking process sometimes for some visual effects shots, and especially if it's CGI, or it's 3D animation or something else, or green screen, because down the line, if you're going to make additional notes, that's additional frames, and what happens is you have to pay for that time again. So it's always good in the beginning. You'll see these temporary animations or these temporary shots, and it's all made for the picture lock, for timing. And why that's really important for you is that when an editor or a videographer gives a rough cut to a client and we go back and forth on notes, it's just about timing, because everything else is going to be added on top: the sound design, the sound mix, the composing, the color, final color grading and correction, as well as visual effects, motion graphics, CGI, green screen, text animation. All of that's going to be put when the picture is locked. Why that's important to know is because you need to have the picture locked, so when we send it to these different departments, they have a blueprint and they have a structure to work with. Because then if you, in the middle of the post-production, you say, hey, I don't like this shot, let's change it, then we change the timing of the whole video. So now I have to go to the sound designer and the sound mixer and the visual effects artist and then the colorist. If you make one little tweak on a little section or for the whole thing. And so it's important to be very specific with your notes in the very beginning, and then know that after it's picture lock, you're just going to pay for extra time and extra money. So just know that. And so picture lock is very important, because once it's locked, once you say, okay, great, the timing is great, I know that this text is temporary, I know the visual effects is temporary, I know that these scenes are temporary, and the music is temporary, and everything is just made for just timing. Sometimes people in animation have things called storymatics or animatics, where they just have rough drawings of the animation, but you can use it for timing. And so from there, people can start coming in, coloring. They can start putting visual effects on top. They can start adding sound design, sound mixing. And so when you have changes in the post to the timing, sound is off, because the composition in a song, it's all based on the emotions and the way that the video goes, and you change a couple frames, then there goes your drop then goes like your cinematic, crescendo to a drop. Then the composer has to come up with a new composition. The sound designer has to fix their timeline. The colorist has to find ways to take out certain sections, whatever it is. Just know that if you have a video that's going to be made, you have to make sure that you give specific notes in the beginning, or when the rough cut goes into the final finishing stages. And so I think that for a lot of the people out there who want to know why it takes so long, and why it takes up so much time or sometimes money for post-production, and why not just have the editor do it? The editor can do it. You can have a very talented editor, but imagine someone that's going to also build your house, do the plumbing, put down the floors, put the roofing on, and then create the interior design. Then you have someone that basically has to do everything in one fell swoop. It's going to take a longer time, and they're probably not going to be the best at interior design and plumbing, but they're great at architecture and painting, whatever, and design. So that's the same thing with post-production, okay? You want to have these different departments so everyone plays for their strengths and everybody can collaborate and give each other notes. It's great to have the composer say to the editor, hey, this section right here doesn't fit with this composition or my score. How about we change it up a little bit so we can add some emotion? Or the visual effects artist can look at the colorist and say, hey, my visual effects won't look great with this coloring style. Maybe if we took out the blues and added more warmth, I can add this type of visual effects to convey lightheartedness and warmth and happiness, right? So a lot of this really comes down to everyone working together for a similar vision, and everyone bringing their piece of advice and expertise to create an even more powerful and more impactful video, because you have basically a bunch of creative professionals working together for one single piece, rather than one person trying to piece together and learn everything in one go and to do everything. And I know how that is, 'cause I used to be, I was a videographer that was doing everything on YouTube, from, creating the idea to shooting it to editing it and then posting it online with SEO and marketing. And so that's just kind of a breakdown of what it takes to create a really nice, great video with different departments in post-production, and understanding that you need to lock the picture before going into these different departments. And then if you give any notes afterwards, what happens is that's going to take more time and cost more money, because some of these folks, like visual effects artists and colorists, they get paid by frame, and then sound and composing, that they have to work with timing, right? It's all about timing with the edit. Also with the editor, it's always hard to have edits afterwards, because just the workflow of the files themselves afterwards, having to send it out to all the different departments and then putting it all together into one cohesive timeline in a editing software, it's a lot of work. And so just some advice for clients out there and brands and companies that hire videographers and video production companies to create videos. And this is also for a lot of the video creators and production companies and videographers out there who need to tell their artists or show them a video of why it takes this long in the post-production, and why there are certain things you need to do in post-production in order for you to have a really beautiful and amazing piece of work. All right. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. If you have any questions, leave some comments below. And if not, you can always email me at mitchell@videocontentschool.com.